Thank you for returning, and to pick up and deeply contemplate these teachings on what we're calling streaming particles of living intelligence. The word living, I was thinking as I thought about the first class after I gave it last Sunday, is really to be accented. That true life, or eternal life as compared to just religious life, even contemplative life, which is a help for it, but of course worldly life or earthly life, you might say there's different levels of living. And living intelligence then becomes, with capital L, capital I, becomes an accent point for understanding all of this, which can be a great envisioning in you. Talking to some people, this is a stretch of their powers of understanding. So it could leave the realm of philosophy and intellect and move into the realm of a vision you hold, or you're trying to hold. Sort of thinking in a different way. Like the Upanishads say, Apyayantu mamangani vak pranaschakshu shrotra balamendriyani cha sarvani. Everything has to be expanded. The ability of your body to stay awake, the ability of your senses to extract more essence out of things, which we'll talk about at the seminar this weekend, and the ability of your prana to flow unimpeded, they say, and your mind's capacity to know Brahman. So all of this is helped by envisioning. So if I could put it in just a few words for people, there is this divine reality. The first compound off it are rays of living intelligence, jnanam. Those rays are consisting of particles like everything else, jnana matras. And inside of the jnana matras, we're looking at one right here, as if we took an electron microscope of Lord Brahma. We stole it when he wasn't looking. He was off hypnotizing Lord Vashishta and having fun with his son. And we stole into Brahmaloka. We took his electron microscope, which is made of pure consciousness, and we put it on a streaming particle. We extracted it, and we looked at it and what it contains, and then we knew the secret to everything. But then he caught us in the act and said, that's only the half of it. And so there's a lot more in a particle. There's a lot more in your philosophy than you can think of, Horatio, or whatever that quote is out of Shakespeare. So that's what we just did. And that's a vision in the mind of a philosopher, probably more like a reality in the mind of a seer. They would be in their equal, contented, be content with anything way, would be sitting in a class like this, smiling and just closing their eyes and nodding, and as if it were a great reminder in the English language, in the Kali Yuga, that this Dharma has penetrated this far and this deeply, and there's a few people to attend and pay attention to it, and take it into their private visions and their contemplations, and have the effects that it's supposed to have on your memory, whether it's to destroy the impediments to the elements of Vishmriti, the dire forgetfulness that's in you over lifetimes or even in this lifetime alone, and to replenish or refurbish your original memory so that you all of a sudden say, I was born before, like Krishna says in the Gita to Arjuna, and I know my birth. Or whether it be Vishmriti, this whole thing is Divine Mother's doing. The whole thing are just particles coming out of her, I couldn't even say her mind, because the Trinity is her mind, out of her Trinity. So we just sang about that. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara Shiva. She'll leave it to them and these processes to unfold and to refold. I was thinking, on the way over here we were talking about that, about how everything is a sankalpa, the mind's projecting all of this. And I immediately flashed on that beautiful sloka in the Upanishads, which is, until a man can fold up the sky like a skin and put it away, and he will never understand is liberated state. So it has to fold up the sky like a skin, is actually the translation. So the ethers, we have to crush the stars to atoms. We have to unhinge the universes. We have to see where the planets come from, not just what science is telling us, but that they all come from within. And then our within is her without. See, we don't want to be without her, I'm not saying that. But then her within, everything that comes from her are these powerful rays, streams of living intelligence. And living again being the key word, like exquisitely living. Because Vivekananda said that if I were to live a life of pleasure, I would know how to get exquisite pleasure out of everything. And so we've been looking at that over the past time as tanmatras. If we bridged the forgetfulness, the vismriti that we have in our culture around tanmatras and prana, we would open up channels inward. We would all be meditators. Oh, Mother, what do you see in your meditations? There's another beautiful thing Raprasad sings. I know what I see in mine. There's a lot of blockages in there. I'm not going very far. But I want to know what you see in your meditations, Mother. So we would, with tanmatras and prana, we would involute. Just like an astronomer looking at a telescope back toward the sun that exploded thousands of years ago, still seeing the light, that kind of thing. Only we're doing it with the telescope, Lord Brahma's telescope, or Divine Mother's telescope, that inspects intelligent rays to see what's in them and following them back to a source, a great light or a great sound. Om, eternal, the unstruck sound, is pretty much at the foundation of everything here. And we're seeing it through 3 states, they tell us: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And if you were to know a little bit more of the essence, then you'd probably come to inspect the mother of the word, as we were doing a little bit last week with that beautiful song, Monoboli Bhajakali. Guru Data Moha Mantra Divaneshi Japa Kore. So japa, you know what that is, practice of the mantra with the bijam in it. And she has gifted you the mantra through the Guru, and all those bijams and letters inside of the mantra and the bijam and then all the wisdom that they consist of have become everything. Now as you go through the countryside, think that you're moving through Mother Kali, because you are, right? Everything from skies to suns to planets, ancestors, elements, insects, any stream you follow out that has its tattvic source and that evolved out of itself, cause and effect style, many times over, till it finally got here in all its splendor, with 1 billion suns still in the sky, 1 billion moons still in the sky, and billions of souls still here, as if it's all like in one eternal moment. That it's like her meditation. Oh, Mother, what do you see in your meditation? Who's the witness of all witness consciousness? See, that's there in the particle. So the secret is then in a word, a bijam. You can get the mantra without a bijam. Some gurus will do that. Work with this mantra for a while. A year later or so, I got an addition now. I'm going to put a power seed in there, a power word in there for you. Now do it for the next year. Repeat the japa, Guru Data Moha Mantra. The Moha Mantra is the supreme mantra of the age. That's Mother Mantra. No mantra is more any powerful than Mother Mantra. So then Divanishi Japa Kori, recite that japa, in japa every day, and watch it return your memory to you. All this abundance of words and books at the level of lower knowledge is confusing you. It's taking you further and further away from the secrets of Mother Wisdom, what you really want to know, what really satisfies you. Lower knowledge will only satisfy for a time. It's higher knowledge you want, to quote Vivekananda. So, if you're thinking incrementally and you're thinking source, you're thinking the greatest mantra of all, which we just looked at, the great bijam of all, Om. So it's representative of timeless awareness. It's the medium for the absolute and the relative. And of course the bijam of transcendence, and that's what they call Sri Ramakrishna Kid. That's Brahman's word. And Shakti's word is Hrim and Aim, they come next. So if these Aim Guru Bhyo Namaha, if you have these bijams given to you, then you're connecting yourself immediately to a wisdom, a stream of particles that is not just impregnated with wisdom of Dharma, it's got the souls who realized the Dharma in it too. Don't forget that. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. It's not just wisdom you're looking for those beings who contain it for all time. That's Mother's child you're talking about. Her precious sons and daughters, as the song sings. That's in the wisdom particle stream too. It's beings too. Even your ancestors can be very illumined, as the rishis of India found out. Bija of wisdom, Aim. It's particular to Saraswati. There's an image of Saraswati. This is where by the time he was 90-some years old, Guru in Portland, Oregon, this is where he grew up as a boy, in this vicinity. And then he went to, after he met Holy Mother and all that, he went to Chennai, and there's a boys' school there, and he taught at a boys' school. And this is the image in the shrine room of the boys' school he taught in. When I went there after he had passed, I met two old men that the Swami introduced me to, who were boys. They were now 80 years old. He said, yeah, we've been at this school when we were boys in front of this Saraswati. So for all that time, and I was like, tears came because they remembered Swami Sheshananda as their teacher. They were just little boys. One of them told me, my mother gave me the whole tuition for the year to give to the teacher. A matter of a few rupees. Tiny amount to us, but a huge amount to the family. And he lost it. So he just didn't know what to do. This is an old man telling me this, a story that when he was just a 10-year-old boy going to this school in Chennai, Madras. Swami Sheshananda, probably in his young 20s, started off there before he went west to teach us. And it was a school there, meditated in this shrine every morning with the boys. And so the boy went to him, told him what happened. And so Swami Sheshananda, they just gave him a little tiny stipend for his food. And he lived in this little hut, half the size of this room we're in, or less, and with dirt floors, as a sannyas, and just slept there, ate there. And so Swami Sheshananda gave him back his tuition and wiped out half of his money for food that month. So he had to eat half as much as a monk eats, which is not very much to begin with. So I'm sitting here listening to this story in India at this school where my teacher had taught after he passed, looking at these two old men who were his students and them telling the story about how great a soul he was. See? And that was 60 years before I even had a chance to meet him, and long before I was born. So the whole thing is a streaming particle of wisdom, intelligence that's coming to us now. We're writing it. And It's the Ramakrishna order itself was Mother Kali's design. Planted it in Rani Rashmani's mind. She's on a river on a boat, looks left, looks right. She has this desire in her to buy some land. There's the land. And Dakshineshwar temple is springing up from there. She buys the land, pays for it all. Shiva temples, Vishnu temple, Kali temple, all in one complex, her great universal design. Then Ramakrishna came. Then the boys came, Holy Mother. And all of a sudden, here we are because of that. And it's, a few hundred years old, if that. This was the vision that was had in the great mind of Mother Kali, which she facilitated by her intelligence. I don't know how else to put it. Everything is proceeding on in this way. It's a flow. And, it's like in the 60s, let's go with the flow, man. It's not like that, kind of flow. It's like you have to know the source of the flow and then find the real flow. And, it'd be more, as we were talking at the break here, remembering that it's always flowing, not that I have to cause it to flow. It seems that way to us, so I have to cause it to flow. But it's just all a matter of remembering that it's always flowing, and then all of a sudden you feel the momentum of it. That's what spiritual awakening is. And spiritual realization is when it all stops again. I awaken to the flow, now I'm moving towards the goal. The goal is in me, I'm not in the goal. And you stop at that point, and you sit still. So you might say that bijams like this are causing you to stop all the words, letters, the very things we're talking about right now that are not infused with vibrating, living intelligence, because you're not aware of them. You're using them for materials. You're using them for fame. You're using them to dominate over others. You're using them to make yourself wiser than others. Just take a look at Bhartrihari's 100 verses on renunciation. You'll understand that. We'll do that at a retreat sometime. So I'm saying that because Bija of wisdom, Aim, is this herald of spiritual wisdom that's always flowing in you. And it's a subtle key to all of creation, what we would call projection. So you might say Om needs its facilitators. And Aim and Hrim would be those two. Aim more specifically towards wisdom, Hrim more specifically towards transformation. What wisdom does to you when you imbibe it. And so it's the implement of refinement and the neutralizer of negativity. And they say when people die in Benares, then if it's the city of Shiva, they get liberated right away. But you can't really plan that, because you'll go to Benares thinking, I don't have to do any spiritual practice now. I'm here. Some pretext will take you away that day that you die. Oops. So you can't cheat karma, and you certainly can't bribe Divine Mother. Or Dharma Raja, which is what we call Dharma Raja. You know who he is? It's another name for death. So that's her facility to move people in their dreams to different dreams, you might say. Better and better dreams, we hope. So they say in Benares then that people die there who really do get moksha. Sri Ram whispers the liberating bijam into their ear. And in the cremation ground, they get liberated from their thoughts, dreams of bodies, and so forth. A beautiful teaching, and it's also in a song. So Om Aim Hrim. Shrim is more towards Lakshmi. You can generally hook these up towards goddesses, aspects of the goddess. Kali Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Savitri, Radha. They say those are the Panchati Prakriti, the 5 forms of manifest divine nature. So in the terms of Shrim, harbinger of quality and quantity and the bestower of mature fulfillment. You'd want to follow through, like connecting A, U, and M would connect your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state. And then you would be the master of all. There would be nothing more for you to gain. Sounds like what Sri Krishna says in the Gita to Arjuna. I have nothing more to gain here in the worlds. I'm only here for Loka Sangraha, for the best of the worlds. It means the people who are ready to hear and use these bijams and mantras to the right effect and result. Going over to the right side, Klim, bija of transformation. Impetus for revolution, a weapon of regeneration. I could say more about all of these, but we're moving on. Krim, bija of insight. It's the oracle of infallible omniscience. You probably could take this Gyanamatra we just showed you and stamp it in there somewhere. It's all-knowingness. It's probably included in one of those entries. It's the reveal of eternal perfection. So Om, Aim, Hrim, Shrim, Klim, Krim, and there are others. Hum, Fat, Svaha. These are powerful words that are going the whole distance to take you to the source of all things. If you looked at Saraswati like that, then whether you were a young boy, a teacher in his 20s, like Swami Sheshananda was, or the Swamis I met there long after that phase had passed and they were all gone, except for those two old men who continued to come back to their boyhood school, then you'd think about these bijams in accordance with Saraswati and sing something like Vani Saraswati Vakdevi Bhagavati Parvati Mam Pahi Mangala Rupini Varde Sharde Sankata Harini Sanmati Daini Vinapani Hamsavahini Vedanta Rupini Palayamam Amba Parameshwari Akilandeshwari Adi Parashakti Palayamam Haste Darini Japamala Samsara Sagara Tarini Mam Mani Saraswati Vagdevi Bhagavati Parvati Mam Pahi, which you can hear on the YouTube Jaima Music now in full recorded with all the English translation. So this beautiful hymn taught to us by Swami Damodaranandaji Maharaj when I was in Fiji with him in earlier years, in my 30s. He said, I have 2 songs I can contribute to Jaima Music. And so he gave me that, and he gave me Namastu Astu Mahamaya. He gave me the 8 verses on Lakshmi. So Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Durga, and Parvati, and Uma, and Savitri, and Radha. I learned all about them. And in Tibetan Buddhism, I got the 2 Divine Mother initiations. Green Tara, White Tara. White Tara, purity, transcendence. Green Tara, compassion for the earth. So I was the Divine Mother's child, remembering everything after coming through the curtain of nescience and having to pay my dues for 20 years to conventional world. And waking up to this great divine reality within us, and so as to never forget it again. Next time I come through the curtain of nescience, if I have to, I hope I'll be like Shankara. 6 years, it's all behind me. Because it is thick, and it is fraught with all sorts of blockages. Part of those blockages are the collective mind. That's something that's very difficult to do something about. There are steamliners that cross the ocean to carry thousands of people. They come. That ship only leaves port every 500 years, they say. But then there are smaller vessels that come and carry fewer people across. Or a drowning man sees a log, so he can get across on that. Another drowning man sees a log, but it's actually a crocodile, so he doesn't get across at all, Shankara says. So there are different levels of beings who can take more and more people and penetrate through these blockages. You have to imagine these as, like I said, without knowledge of tanmatras, subtle particles, which I'll show next at the seminar next weekend instead of today, and without the prana that moves them, where are we going? We're stuck out here with digestion, with breathing in and out, without knowing why, with particles of nutrition running through our bloodstream and not being able to access them properly, because our food wasn't blessed or pure. We got 5 different pranas there that are all gross effects of psychic prana. We're not making the connection, so we cannot go in. If you have made a connection, then you've gone in, and you begin to benefit yourself by intelligent particles that are giving you ojas and giving the gurus tejas. Where else do you think they're getting them from? It's like one stream can blend with another. You know what that's called in Lord Vashishtha's yoga? Walking the skies. They don't just walk the skies themselves and have a great time back in the causal body. They see other beings who are at least, if not more, intelligent than they are, and they go and blend with them. That's hooking up, you know, on a deep spiritual level, if you want to put it that way, you see. Wow, look at the books on that one, you see. Look at the knowledge in that one. I want to go drink that nectar, see. Evie bird, you know, with a long beak. I got a long beak here. And you look like a lehua flower to me. So they share essence with each other. And what's happening down here in the matter of bodies bumping against each other in the dark, like mosquitoes coming together, is nothing unless you realize the divine connection to it. So this beautiful hymn puts a capper on this chart. I mean, basically, until, what's the year on it? Until 2017, I hadn't found in books people giving out the secrets to the Bijams, and I certainly wasn't going to do it. It just wasn't done. There were the Bijams that nobody knew what they really meant or how they worked, or, you know, except souls that were akamai, you know. It's another nice Bijam in Hawaiian language, akamai, in the know. So when I put out this chart, well, I'll just put out the Bijam and basically what they each signify. I'll put 2 bullet points on each. And then we can meditate on something rather than just Om or Hing or Aim. Who does that connect to? And how do I pronounce it? What does it do for me? Well, here, I'll tell you. Do you know that the Master himself taught me these Bijams and mantrams and how they connect to the deities? This is Holy Mother saying this. She was heard to say this by some of the devotees. Do you know that the Master himself taught me these mantrams? He's in his 30s, you know, she's 18, she just came to him from the countryside to help with his mission. And what did he do for her that we never hear, that's not in books? Very precious little in books. We're lucky we have the Gospel of him. And what else did she say? He gave me mantras possessing great power. They are imbued with the pure force of renunciation. So if you're found a teacher who can give you a mantra with a bijam in it and you're a serious practitioner, then game over. See, no more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my Divine Mother. Is it clear now? See, any clearer? Rays are emanations from Divine Mother. And if you use them as your vehicles, inward and outward, at least at the level of Lila Sankalpa, even if you don't know the deep philosophical trappings of them, as taught in the great traditions by illumined souls, then you have the secret to all of life. You have the secret to eternal life. And you'll never be born in the womb of ignorance again, no matter how you're born. It's how the Advaita sings that. I could sing it to you. I want to move on to touch on this chart which you saw last week. Because this is, of course, future material for a whole retreat. We'll take each one of these streams and look at it. I'm just concentrating on the bijams right now and the Jnana mantras. To have a definitive end to this class in a little while. As endings goes, we know that they don't go very far, do they? So this chart came to me after I read the Aksha Malika Upanishad. You see the first quote there. Reverential treatment of the mala involves bathing it with milk, wrapping it in sacred grass, made wet with Ganges water and sandalwood oil, smearing it with fragrant pastes and unguents, such as sandalwood and kashturi, placing it on a bed of flowers, uttering Om over it, then meditate on each bead in conjunction with the presiding deities of each unit. Now, if you were a Westerner and you got a set of beads from your teacher, like I did, and he told you, say at least 108 a day, see, using this mantra. Yes, sir. You go away. You came back 4 or 6 months later or something. And in my case, he put the bijam in a year later. I didn't have the bijam for the first year of practice. I think I was at 20-something years old. So, but then you thought, well, wow, I'm great. You know, I got the mantra here. I'm saying it. Everything's fine, right? And then you go, gah, you know. That's what each bead I've been twirling for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years means, and I haven't known it. So I looked at the Aksha Malika, because there's that word. Aksha means, you know, third eye, really. And so I looked at that and I said, how beautiful to slow down the repetition of my japa. You know, I mean, some people do it very fast. You can see, like, some practitioners, you know, mantra almost starts smoking, you know, from the friction, and or they'll put that down entirely and just mutter it, like some of the Buddhist schools and so forth. Because there's 3 ways, upanchu and so forth. There's 3 ways of saying a mantra: silently, muttering it, or out loud. Silent is superior, muttering it second, and out loud is inferior. But it doesn't really matter, you know, it's that much. That's just the dynamic of the teaching. What you really want is to have your full consciousness there when you're doing it. And that's a challenge for most people. Their streaming particles are not together in japa practice. It's probably the first examination you want to make about yourself when you got a mantra from a teacher. I just said it, 108, took me 10 minutes. I was absent for 9 minutes. If I'm lucky, right? So how do I'm going to try and be present for like 3 minutes this time, you see. But then about 10 beads in, you're like thinking of some god-awful thing. Vishmriti's attacking you, see. And worldly stuff is coming back on you. See? Oh, I forgot, I've got to take the car in for service today. What? You just lost, like, giver of strength, destroyer of evil thoughts, healer of disorders, and the effulgent revealer aren't going to help me next week because I forgot about them, you see. I did the bead, those set of beads in loss of memory, you see. So then pretty soon, you see, all 10 minutes is going to be absolutely focused, you see. Or a whole hour is going to be absolutely focused. So one of the ways of doing that is your ishtam. You, just like you're envisioning this, you're envisioning in your heart is best, a shrine there with your great ideal there. You're saying the mantra that Guru gave you, and you're sitting there and meditating on that soul. And as long as you can do that and keep that up, you're enlightened. And as soon as you stop and forget it, you're not enlightened anymore. I'm spiritual when I'm doing my practice, and all other times I'm not. What's that all about? See, because how long a day do I do my practice? 1 hour, and the other 23 is, a few hours of deep sleep if I'm lucky, and a lot of hours of dreaming. Actually, the rest of all the hours are dreaming. It's a matter of whether they're dream number 1 or dream number 2, as Ramana Maharshi would put it. So this is about treating your mantra. So that was one thing that was a great thing. So I did that once with my at least a lot of it I did with it. And I'll still now today soak it in incense dust and some ganges water, put it in a wrap, say Om over it, and make sure that I treat it right. I was just one sitting with Naren Maharaj in Bellarmont, who was the manager at the time, and he had on his desk there a mala that is just black. He said, I used this so much that it just soaked up all my skin oils, you see, and it just turned black. He said, now I keep it in a glass case, and I had to get a new one. See, can I touch it? Well, he opened it up and let me touch it. So they use them so much, like thousands a day, to put their mind in that state. Because as long as your mind's in that state of concentration, if you can attain it, it's not on these other things that are trying to insinuate themselves into you. There are a lot of words that suggest themselves to your mind, but they're not bijams, and they're not mantras, and they're not full of living intelligence. Everything but, probably. So you're going to want to become more aware. So I think this is impractical to think that, every time you run through your practice of Japamala that you'd think. But maybe once you might want to do this, or once a month, and treat your mala that way too. Like this is a sacred accoutrement, just like your chadar. So, and it's as precious as your shrine and your altar at home, or the temple you go to, and so forth. These are all streams of living intelligence, aren't they? And you're actually now you're almost seeing them coming out of the skies. But these are the skies of inner awareness, of course. But just as in the time remaining, just as a quick read here, I think the symbology, maybe even more than knowing the powers of each bead that the Upanishads meditated on, the rishis, and found it, is what's here at the top is just fantastic. The thread is Brahman. So there you have what we might call the tassel. So that's Brahman. So, I'm always, put some light perfume and ganges water, and keep that from wrinkling or folding. Or people treat their malas in god-awful ways, I've noticed. Keep them in a nice silver box or in a nice cloth bag or whatever. Put them in a great place. I think even putting them around your neck, if it's not just temporary, is also not all that great a thing to do. Exposing them to the outer air and the world and so forth. So it would be very good to, treat your mala in that way. So there's the Guru bead there. Not a lot has been said about that or taught about that, but the Upanishads will. Guru bead's face is who we just sang to. The face of it is Saraswati, and behind it is the Gayatri. So that's another thing you probably want to sing all the time. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimohi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Do your Gayatri mantra, or do Durga Devi Gayatri Om Kachayanaya Vidmahe Kanya Kumari Dhimohi Tano Durga Prachodayat. Om Durga Devi Namaha. I've got about 12 Gayatris I know. So the main Gayatri is to Mother Gayatri herself. So if you were to want to honor or worship or propitiate Gayatri, you'd think of the back side of your Guru bead as her and the front side as Saraswati, okay? Next time you do your practice with the mala, think of this and think, okay, I'm now going to initiate a few deeper aspects of the practice as told to me by my Guru from the scriptures. Isn't that going to help your memory? Isn't that going to bring things forward? It's going to be beneficial. So you've just caused the streaming particles to come from your past lineage of teachers forward into this bead that you're holding. And you're a willing participant in it. And the Jnana mantras are vibrating now, you see. And they can radiate out. And they can radiate far out to the world. We used to go on Jaima music tours and across the country in the United States back in the 80s. Lex Hickson was sometimes with us. Both he and I would have our malas out as we drove, driving with one hand, saying the mantra with the other. We'd even break from the mantra and talk about divine things and so forth, practical things too. And then it's back, houses going by, cities going by, towns going by, saying Ramakrishna mantra all the way across the United States. Just like Swami Paramananda did when he took the train from his center in La Crescenta, California, all the way to New England, Rhode Island, where Gayatri Devi, speak about the Gayatri, where his niece was still young and growing up, and then take the train all the way back. You do this several times a year. Before we were even in Vedanta, he was doing this. So there are beings in the country, great swamis, who are unheralded and basically unknown, would have remained unknown if we hadn't found out about it, that we're doing the mantra across the country, see, for the good of everyone else. So let it stream. This is why you said, get with the flow, man, when you were younger. You might have had a black light poster of Om on your wall and not know the first thing about what it meant and how deep it was. But this is what you were headed towards if you followed the path. How about the holes in the Guru bead, where you thread them through to connect the other beads to it? Those are knowledge, bead holes. You wouldn't think of that, would you? Well, it's just a bead. You wouldn't think of the hole. But it causes a hole. If you want to become holy, you have to make a hole, my teacher used to say. So if it's a Rudraksha bead, then you make that hole thinking, this is knowledge through solid things. And it's going to pass the thread through it, which is Brahman. See? Because it's all pervasive. It's the Sutradhara. It's Mother herself. So the garland itself, the knots that you put between, are nature, grantis. So beads, holes, granti. Brahman, knowledge, and blockages. Separators between each bead. See? The Guru bead to the left, the Guru beads left, because we know the face and the tail are Mother, they have their consorts. So on the left side of the bead is Vishnu, right side is Shiva. Let me remember these divine beings as I do my mala, the scriptures say. May I remain in awareness of and remember all of this as I do my mantra with the bijam on my mala as given to me by the wisdom teacher who got it in a lineage, who is a streaming particles of living intelligence coming from Divine Mother herself. That's it. And nobody can make it otherwise. Because each one of those tiny increments of jnana, wisdom, has an impermeable covering around it, right? Made of at least 4 things we now know about. Well, we're not going to go through all these, but I'm going to read them all to you. First bead that you would come upon is the conqueror of death. I'd say that I could make running commentary on this whole thing good for maybe a retreat at some point. But basically, Dharma Raja or Yama, you're calling upon the god of death to devour death. I have received a command from the Divine Mother of the universe that death must die. Death itself must die, because it's an illusion in my mind, and it's in the collective mind in spades. Their whole way of thinking is based on birth, life, and death. It doesn't happen in Brahman. It doesn't happen in Om. It doesn't happen in Ishvara. It doesn't happen in the realized soul. I could sing you from the Abhatut about it, what he's realized. So conquering death would be one of the first moves that you make with the mantra. I have received a command from her wisdom child. Second bead of the mala is omniscience. Certainly if you got rid of the idea of death, then you'd know that you're all-knowing, because you got rid of that main knot that was between them. So you transversed it. You went past it. Which you never do with the Guru bead, by the way. You know, you never go over the Guru bead. You go back and forth. You'll never be able to do away with the Guru, even if you try, as Holy Mother said. Well, there we have giver of abundance. Let's see. So there you have like the Lakshmi, Vishnu. Destroyer of evil thoughts. That's a good one to concentrate on. Remove the negativities. Healer of disorders. You think of beings like Patanjali and Vashishta when we think about the greatest healers of all times. And they weren't just healers, that's what made them the greatest healers. Because they talked about things that didn't need healing. Like your Atman, or the wisdom particle, or prana that's already flowing. That's why healers and doctors, I went to them, you know, I couldn't accept what they said. I just couldn't. It wasn't that I had a yen out for not accepting. It's like, that doesn't make sense to me. You don't have to heal something that's already well. Its very nature is wellness. Using it as a kind of silly word they are using in the New Age. Wellness. It's the very nature of that. The effulgent revealer. See how these go back and forth very nicely. The devourer of all. Probably think about Rudra when you went to that bead. the all-attracting one, the pure, noble one, that one that is the foundation of speech. And all of a sudden you're thinking Saraswati in this beautiful hymn we just sang. And the nature of speech itself. You can see when the Upanishads, this is all from Aksham Malika, you see they're thinking about the ability to speak, right? The tanmatra of it. And where it came from. So it wasn't just, oh, let's teach the baby its first words. Pardon me, like, have a nice laugh here. It was born out of words. You know, probably knows more words right now in its infant state than you do in your adult state. Because it's looking back still into the source of where it just came from. And you've forgotten it for 40 years. Talk about the great deluder coming next. Then the all-attracting one. Then the pure and noble one. The foundation and the nature of speech itself. These are things to be meditated upon. It's called manana. The elephant of auspiciousness. That's an easy one to figure out, isn't it? For everyone. Om Jaya Ganapati Ganesha Jaya Om. Om Kara Prabhu Sharanam Sharanam. O Lord, Prabhu, I take refuge in you. The elephant of auspiciousness. The terrible one. Probably want to go, since we already had the devourer of all, we're probably thinking of Shiva and Kali for epithets like that. The neutralizer of poisons. The tormentor of evil. I must make fear afraid of itself. I must torment evil, and I must put death in its own grave. Then they won't come to me anymore, because I'm a hard case, you see. They'll stay away. Well, in case you didn't say your Ganesha mantra powerful enough, then they want to remind you of it. Here's the remover of obstacles. Vikya Vinashana, they call him. Durgati Bhavani. She's also the offspring of Durga. Ganesh there with Durga. The great stupefier. She can cover the minds of the asuras, and so they're just misled away from doing evil to her children. The shaper of intelligence. That would be a very nice epithet for thinking about how I'm going to bring my streaming particles from scattered to gathering to gathered. See, so I'm kind of shaping my intelligence until it can be focused again, and all will be okay. There's where everything will be all right. Really makes sense. Otherwise, that's a stupid saying. Nothing's ever all right in Maya. You're kidding me? Have you looked? Are you blind? Destroyer of cruelty. Destroyer of bad spirits. The unstoppable one. The destroyer of hell beings. So we're getting into Shiva's functions there. Like I said, we love Lakshmi and Vishnu, but let's make some contact and some relationship now with Shiva and Kali. And you're going around, you see you've reached 64. I don't know if there's 108 here. I might not have had room for it all. I think I have pictured, that's my own mala there that I scanned actually and put in there. The mala that Lexixon gave me, the sandalwood beads. I think there's 54 here. So basically, the all-powerful one, the purest of all. Probably couldn't think much beyond Holy Mother for that. Shisharda Devi, the primal cause of all. probably thinking about Mother or the Trinity, who grants righteousness, who sanctifies actions, who is the noblest one, who hears our prayers, who burns transgressions, who purifies thoughts, who staves off hatred, who quiets fears and worries, who is the remover of defects, granter of capaciousness, that expansiveness that you want as you recognize what's within you, who grants progress, remember the bijams and the mudras, giver of enjoyment and freedom, both. It's like the four fruits goddess, to give you both yoga and boga. Remover of suffering, who grants growth, who yokes one to the Dharma. It's a nice thing to have happen. Won't you do that for us? Just yoke us to the Dharma. That's like the best kind of yoga, because yoga means, they often say, it's like the word yoke, yoga. Who bestows grains of food. Yes, Annapurna. She's in this room right now with us, really. I'm certain of it. Who is the granter of success, the essence of goodness, who is the prana bird, Garuda. So one of the beads is for your prana, Garuda, who carries you. The moon healer. There's Surya, but there's also Chandra, yes. And then there is remover of diseases, the churner of wisdom nectar. And so there's a quick run through at least what's half of your, I think that's probably 54 entries on your mala. And probably didn't have room to put everything there from the Akshamalika. But the last quote there is very good from the same Upanishad. Mrityu is not the only means of death. Carelessness and non-alertness resulting from ignorance also figure in. Reciting the mantra on the sacred japa beads in circular fashion, starting from the crest jewel and ending at the crest jewel, destroys ignorance, neutralizes old karmas, and keeps new karmas from forming. Can't get any more straight to the point than that. That's not even advice, that's just a statement of fact and an encouragement. Do more japa, you see. Holy Mother is said to have done sometimes hundreds and thousands of it a day. A day. Can you do 108? Of course, she herself would do a past master. She was called Japaharani. And we just read the beautiful charts back there about Sri Ramakrishna gave her all the bijams and how they connected to the goddesses and what they meant when she was a young woman. So that was all remembrance for her. It was already in her. In the Kali Yuga, just have to recall it back and have a great teacher do that for you, no matter who you are, I think. So in terms of your method, then the Akshamalika Upanishad accents this for you. Again, it destroys ignorance, neutralizes old karmas, and keeps new karmas from forming. So if you do it full concentration, and she used to say the same about meditation too. She said, you know, if you can meditate 2 or 3 minutes with full concentration is better than an hour with restless mind. So you're always trying to extract the essence out of everything you do. So you'd be doing the same with your practice. You know, figure out ways of focusing that mind, because it's petulant. Arjuna says it's harder to control than the wind. I can't do it. So he's like this, the best of warriors outside, and inside he's a baby. You see, how does that happen? So, I've seen it. Muscle-building men trying to teach them meditation, and they're scared of the darkness. Not just scared of the darkness in their room when you turn out the lights at night. They're scared of going beyond tactile things that they can grab onto, unless it's a barbell. You see. So it takes a whole different kind of boldness and courage, enterprising spirit, and maybe a few aids, because the mantra, the japa beads are not a way, they're not enlightenment themselves, they're a way, a practice to get you to enlightenment. She said that herself, Japa Harini. It's a practice, but it's got a definitive end that it takes you to. And so we have ended our class on streaming particles of living intelligence, and it's now down on film for everyone to look at after the fact. Those of you who couldn't join us live streaming today, or who are at the other centers on the mainland, you can look back on this and probably do it anyway. If you've seen it once, see it again, and the charts with it, and envision it, bring it close to your heart, actuate it, and think about it in terms of some definitive success that is greater and greater as you comprehend it. It's returning memory of all divine things to you as you entertain it, as you extract essence from it, as you learn to abide in it fully. Om Bhadram Karnabihi Sriniyama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabirya Jatraha Stiyaraya Rangayish Tushtuvam Sastanavir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayahu. May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual, hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting, and may we, while worshipping the Lord and the Divine Mother of the universe, in perfect awareness of intelligence, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.